Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. Life will always put people in your path who want one thing controlled. They want to dictate how you move, what you say, how you feel. They feed off your reaction. They live for the argument, the back and forth, because that gives them power. Ladies and gentlemen, let me break something down to you today. We live in a world where noise is constant. Everybody's talking, everybody's posting, everybody's trying to outshout the next person. The loudest voice in the room often gets attention, but attention and power are not the same thing. True power doesn't always show up in the noise. Sometimes it lives in silence. Silence, when used with intention, can carry more weight than any argument, more strength than any shout, and more clarity than any speech you could ever give. Silence is power. Think about the times in your life when you walked away from a situation and said nothing. You probably left somebody stunned. They expected anger. They expected tears. They expected a full-blown response. They had prepared themselves for a fight or a reaction they could twist back on you. But when you gave them silence, you took away the script they were writing in their mind. And suddenly, they didn't know what to do. That moment of confusion, that discomfort, that shift in energy, that's power. We're conditioned to believe that we always have to respond, that we must defend ourselves at all costs. But here's the truth. Not every battle is worth your voice. Some battles are designed to steal your peace, not to prove your point. And when you choose silence, you're making a statement louder than any words could. You're saying, I don't have time for this. I don't have energy for this. I don't owe you an explanation. That choice isn't weakness. That choice is control over yourself, and that's what makes it powerful. Let's be real. There are people out here who thrive on getting under your skin. They poke at you because they want to see you break. They want to see you raise your voice, lose your cool, stumble over your words. Because if you react, they feel like they've won. They've pulled you down to their level. But silence is the one weapon they can't fight against. You can argue with words, you can argue with anger, but you cannot argue with silence. Silence forces them to sit with themselves, and sometimes that's the very thing they're running from. When you stay silent, you don't just protect your energy, you hold on to your mystery. People don't know what you're thinking. They don't know what your next move will be. They don't know how much you've already figured out. And that uncertainty, that's power. Because power is not about letting everybody know your business. Power is about moving in ways people can't predict, keeping them guessing, keeping them uncomfortable. Silence keeps your hand close to your chest, and when the time comes to act, you strike from a place of strength, not weakness. Now think about history. Think about leaders, thinkers, and even everyday folks who mastered the art of silence. When someone walks into a room and doesn't say much, people pay attention. Why? Because silence draws curiosity. Silence forces others to fill in the gaps. And many times, they fill those gaps with respect, with assumptions of wisdom, with thoughts of strength. That's why silence has always been linked with power. People are often afraid of silence because it holds a mirror up to them. It forces them to hear their own thoughts, their own fears, their own insecurities. When you are comfortable in silence, it shows you are at peace with yourself. That is intimidating to someone who isn't. Let's talk about relationships for a moment. In arguments, silence is often misunderstood. People think if you're not shouting back, you're weak. If you don't respond, you're being walked over. But let me tell you something, that silence can be the ultimate form of strength, because when you stay calm while somebody else is losing control, you shift the balance of power. They become smaller with every raised voice, every wild gesture, every harsh word. And you become bigger with every breath you refuse to waste on them. You walk away with your dignity intact, and that leaves a deeper mark than any comeback line ever could. There's also silence in discipline. See, everybody wants to show off their grind, talk about how hard they're working, put on display everything they're building. But the ones who truly rise to the top are the ones who move in silence. They're not out here broadcasting their every move. They're not clapping back at every critic. They're not wasting time proving themselves to people who don't matter. They're silent in the work, and then the results speak louder than any words ever could. That's power. Sometimes silence is about listening. Too many people talk just to hear themselves speak, but the one who listens is the one who learns. When you practice silence in conversations, you notice what others miss. You see the cracks in someone's story. You catch the details they didn't think you'd hear. You understand the emotions beneath the words. That makes you sharper, wiser, and more in control. Silence is not just the absence of sound. It is the presence of awareness. And that awareness puts you 10 steps ahead. Silence also heals. In moments of pain, when you feel the need to scream out, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is sit in quiet and allow yourself to feel. That silence becomes a sanctuary, a space where clarity is born. Instead of rushing to react, you breathe, you reflect, you gather strength. And when you emerge, you come back stronger, calmer, unshaken. That's power, because emotional control is the highest form of self-mastery. Think about how silence unsettles people. Walk into a room where everyone's gossiping and say nothing. Watch how they look at you, wondering what you're thinking. Silence makes people project their own fears onto you. They wonder if you know something they don't, if you've caught something they missed, if you're silently judging them. That unease is the power silence gives you without you lifting a finger. And silence can be respect too. Not every situation needs your opinion. Not every stage needs your voice. Sometimes the most powerful person in the room is the one who sits back and lets others talk. Because when you finally do speak, people listen. Why? Because you don't waste words. Your silence makes your words rare, and rare things are valuable. That's why your silence adds weight to every sentence you choose to speak. The challenge is this: can you be comfortable in silence? Can you walk away without explaining yourself? Can you stand in your truth without defending it? Can you let others underestimate you while you quietly build? Because if you can, you unlock a level of strength that shouting, fighting, or explaining will never give you. Power isn't about controlling others. It's about controlling yourself. And silence is the ultimate test of that control. When someone wants to dominate you, when they crave reaction, silence dismantles their plan. It denies them the satisfaction they came for. They wanted your energy, they got nothing. They wanted your words, they got quiet. They wanted to see you shaken, they saw you steady. And that silence echoes in their mind long after the moment is gone. Because it told them a truth they weren't ready to hear. You are not controlled by them, you are controlled by you. Silence is not passive. It is active, deliberate, intentional. It's you deciding not to waste your power on things unworthy of it. It's you recognizing that your energy is valuable, and not everybody deserves access to it. It's you creating space for peace, clarity, and wisdom to rise above chaos. It's you stepping back so your actions, your results, your presence can do the talking instead. Silence is power because it is choice. It is the choice to hold, to wait, to rise, instead of being dragged into the noise where nothing grows. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something that people don't always understand. Control is not some magical power that someone else just has over you. Control doesn't exist on its own. Control is fed, it is nurtured, it grows stronger only when you give it what it needs. And what it needs is your reaction. Without your reaction, control starves. Without your reaction, control crumbles. Control feeds on reaction, and the moment you take that reaction away, the grip they thought they had begins to slip. Think about it. Every manipulator, every controller, every person who tries to dominate someone else, they all rely on one thing: the ability to push a button and get a response. They know exactly which words to use, which tone to take, which expression to show to pull you in. It's like fishing. They throw out bait and they wait for the bite. The bait doesn't work without the fish reacting to it. And that's the game. They don't have real power. The only power they have is the power you hand over when you react. That's why people who seek control always test you. They say something disrespectful to see if you'll argue. They make you jealous to see if you'll chase. They dismiss your feelings to see if you'll beg. They are not trying to win truth. They are trying to win reaction, because reaction is their confirmation that they still have you in the palm of their hand. They know that as long as you respond, they can keep playing. But when you stop reacting, when you look at them with calmness, when you walk away instead of playing into it, they lose their grip. They lose the energy that was feeding them. See, control is like fire. As long as you throw wood on it, it blazes. But if you stop feeding it, the flames die. Your reaction is the wood. Every time you get upset, every time you argue, every time you explain yourself to someone who doesn't deserve that explanation, you are throwing fuel into their fire. That fire grows and burns you in the process. But when you stop, when you hold back, when you let silence speak instead, their fire dies out on its own. That's why reaction is everything. We live in a society where people are addicted to reactions. Look at social media. It's built on likes, comments, shares, claps, boosts, whatever it is. People don't even care if it's positive or negative. They just want a reaction, because reaction is attention. Reaction is energy. Reaction is what makes them feel like they matter. And in relationships, in workplaces, in families, it's the same. The one trying to control feeds off your attention, your emotion, your energy. They don't care if it's love or anger, as long as they're getting a piece of you. But here's the truth. When you learn how to manage your reaction, you learn how to take back your power. You can't always stop someone from trying to control you, but you can stop feeding them. You can stop giving them the satisfaction of your voice raised, your tears spilled, your peace disturbed. Because when you control your reaction, you show them something they can't handle. You show them that their tricks don't work anymore. That's when they panic. That's when they realize the game is up. Think about the last time someone tried to provoke you. Maybe it was a partner trying to make you jealous. Maybe it was a boss trying to belittle you in front of others. Maybe it was a family member pushing your buttons just to get you riled up. Now think about what would have happened if you had said nothing, if you had smiled and walked away, if you had given them no reaction at all. That moment would have robbed them of their power. Because power in those situations only exists if you hand it over. Control is a parasite. It cannot survive on its own. It has to attach itself to something. And what it attaches to is your reaction. Without you, it withers. Without you, it dies. That's why some people will push harder and harder the moment you stop reacting. They can feel the grip slipping and they start to panic. They might yell louder, insult deeper, pull out every trick in the book. But if you hold steady, if you stand in your calm, if you refuse to give that reaction, eventually they're left with nothing but themselves. And that emptiness is what they fear most. Some folks think control is strength, but real strength doesn't need to control. Real strength doesn't need reaction. Real strength is secure, steady, confident. Control, on the other hand, is fragile. It shakes when ignored. It breaks when silence meets it. It panics when calmness stands in front of it. And that's why reaction is its lifeline. Look at children when they throw tantrums. What do they want? They want a reaction. They scream, they stomp, they cry because they're testing you. And the moment you react, they learn that their behavior works. They learn that if they scream loud enough, they'll get attention. But if you don't give in, if you stay calm, they eventually realize that the tantrum gets them nowhere. Adults aren't much different. People who crave control throw tantrums too. They just do it with words, manipulation, guilt, or intimidation. And just like children, Their tantrums only keep working if you keep reacting. It's not easy to hold back. We're human. We want to defend ourselves. We want to explain. We want to set the record straight. But ask yourself, is my reaction giving me peace? Or is it giving them power? Most times you'll realize it's the latter. Your reaction is the very thing they're counting on. And once you see that, you understand why silence, why calmness, why non-reaction is so powerful. There's wisdom in restraint. It doesn't mean you don't care. It doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're choosing not to play a game that was designed for you to lose. Because control games are never about fairness, they're about manipulation. They're about dragging you into a place where you waste energy while they gain it. And the only way to win that game is not to play at all. Notice how people react differently when you refuse to feed them. Some get angry because your calmness exposes their chaos. Some back away because they realize they can't touch you anymore. Some even try to flip it on you, saying you're cold or uncaring. But deep down, they know the truth. Your lack of reaction is showing them their own weakness. They can't control what they can't trigger. And that truth cuts deeper than any words you could say. And don't get me wrong, sometimes silence isn't the answer. Sometimes you do have to speak up, defend yourself, or set boundaries. But the point is, you choose those moments. You decide when and how to respond. You're not reacting on their terms, you're acting on your own. That's the difference between being controlled and being in control. It's not about never speaking, it's about making sure your voice is your choice, not their bait. The moment you realize control feeds on reaction, life gets lighter. You stop being pulled into every argument, every drama, every trap. You learn to let people sit in the discomfort of not getting what they want from you. You learn to let their words fall flat because you know their power ends where your reaction begins. And that lesson shifts everything. It gives you freedom, it gives you peace, and most importantly, it gives you back yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a time in life when you realize that the loudest thing about you isn't your voice. It isn't your argument. It isn't even the proof you try to lay down for people to see. The loudest thing about you is your dignity. Dignity is the quiet strength that walks into the room before you say a single word. It's the steady calm that makes people stop and look, not because of what you're shouting, but because of how you're carrying yourself. And here's the truth. Dignity speaks louder than words ever could. See, words can be twisted. People can argue with your voice. They can dismiss your point. They can talk over you until your message gets lost. But dignity can't be debated. You can't argue with the way a person carries themselves. You can't diminish someone who refuses to diminish themselves. Dignity is untouchable because it is rooted in self-respect. And self-respect doesn't need anyone else's approval. Think about the people you've met who didn't have to say much to make a statement. Maybe it was the elder in your family who just looked at you and you straightened up without them saying a word. Maybe it was a leader who walked into the room and the whole room shifted, not because they shouted, but because of the quiet presence they carried. That's what dignity does. It speaks for you. It protects you. It elevates you without you ever needing to lift your voice. In conflict, dignity is your shield. People expect you to argue, to shout, to throw insults. They expect you to get down in the mud with them. And when you don't, when you keep your composure, when you choose silence over chaos, they feel the weight of your dignity pressing down on them. They realize they can't move you. They can't shake you. They can't break you. Your dignity has already spoken, and it's louder than any insult they could ever throw. Dignity is also what keeps you from explaining yourself to people who don't deserve an explanation. You don't owe everyone access to your story. You don't owe everyone a breakdown of your decisions. Dignity says, I don't need to convince you. My choices speak for themselves. My life speaks for itself. My peace speaks for itself. And that quiet confidence rattles people who thrive on dragging you into debates, because dignity says more in silence than you could ever say in defense. Look at the way dignity changes relationships. When you carry yourself with self-respect, people learn how to treat you. You don't have to beg for it. You don't have to scream for it. You don't have to demand it. Your presence sets the tone. If you lower your standards, if you compromise your dignity for attention or validation, people sense that and they use it. But if you hold your ground, if you stay rooted in your worth, people either rise to meet it or they remove themselves. Dignity does the filtering for you. And it's not just about how others see you. It's about how you see yourself. Dignity gives you a peace that no argument can give you. When you walk away from a situation with your dignity intact, you sleep better at night. You don't replay the argument in your head. You don't regret the words you said. You don't wish you could take anything back. Because you know you didn't betray yourself. You stayed true to your values, to your calm, to your self-respect. And that quiet victory speaks volumes inside you. Dignity also holds weight in success. In a world where everybody wants to brag, wants to prove, wants to flex what they've got, dignity is the person who lets their results do the talking. Dignity doesn't need to show off. Dignity doesn't need to crush others to rise. Dignity simply builds, grows, and arrives without announcement. And when it does, it speaks so loudly that nobody can ignore it. People respect results, but they respect results backed by dignity even more. Think about how dignity works when people are watching you go through tough times. Life will test you. People will betray you. You will face situations where others expect you to crumble. And when you hold your head high, when you move through pain with grace, that dignity leaves an impression that lasts forever. People may forget what you said during those moments, but they will never forget how you carried yourself. Dignity makes people remember you because it is rare, and what is rare always shines brighter. Sometimes the most powerful response is to simply walk away. That walk, if done with dignity, echoes louder than any speech, because it says, I am not desperate for your approval. I am not going to fight for what doesn't honor me. I am not lowering myself just to prove a point. That walk, that quiet exit is louder than any mic drop, because people feel the weight of what your dignity just said without you saying a single word. Let's not confuse dignity with pride. Pride is fragile. It shouts, it brags, it tries to prove. Dignity is calm, steady, unshaken. Pride needs validation. Dignity doesn't. Pride is loud because it is insecure. Dignity is quiet because it is secure. And that's why dignity always speaks louder. People may forget the prideful words someone said, but they never forget the dignified way someone carried themselves. Think about your own life. The moments you regret the most probably aren't the ones where you stayed quiet and dignified. They're the ones where you lost your cool, where you let anger win, where you said things that betrayed your values. Dignity never leaves you with regret. It may leave you misunderstood in the moment, but in the long run, it always proves you right, because time reveals everything and dignity needs time to show its strength. There is also a healing power in dignity. When you've been wronged, when you've been hurt, the temptation is to lash out, to prove your pain, to get revenge. But dignity holds you back. Dignity whispers, don't let them drag you down. Don't let them steal your peace. And when you listen to that, you begin to heal, because revenge and arguments don't bring healing. They keep you tied to the wound. Dignity, however, allows you to let go, to move forward, to rise higher without carrying the weight of bitterness. And when you rise, people see that and they understand without you having to say anything. Dignity isn't just for public moments. It's for private ones too. It's how you talk to yourself when nobody's listening. It's the decision to respect yourself enough not to settle, not to compromise your values, not to live smaller than you are meant to. That inner dignity shapes everything else, because when you respect yourself, the world eventually has no choice but to respect you too. When people look back on you, when your story is told, what do you think will be remembered most? It won't be every argument you won. It won't be every clap back, every sharp response. Those fade. What lasts is how you carried yourself. What lasts is the dignity you showed even when life tried to break you. That's what sticks in people's hearts. That's what people retell. That's what inspires. Because dignity doesn't just speak louder than words. It lasts longer too. Ladies and gentlemen, sometimes the most unforgettable moments in life aren't the ones filled with shouting, clapping back, or proving yourself. They're the moments when you choose stillness, when you choose silence, when you choose dignity instead of chaos. And in that silence, there is a truth so loud, so undeniable, that it echoes long after you've walked away. He'll never forget the quiet truth, because it's the one thing he wasn't prepared to face. See, most people who try to control you, who try to manipulate you, who try to test your limits, are ready for your reaction. They're prepared for your anger, your tears, your words, your defenses. They want the back and forth, because that's what keeps them feeling in charge. But when you don't play into it, when you let your silence carry the weight of your truth, that's when everything shifts. That's when the power leaves their hands and comes back to yours. Because the quiet truth doesn't need defense. It doesn't need an audience. It simply exists, and its existence is enough to haunt someone who thought they had control. The quiet truth is this: he never had the control he thought he had. He never owned your worth. He never dictated your future. He never determined who you are. And when your silence revealed that, it was more shocking than any words you could have thrown at him. Words can be dismissed, twisted, ignored. But silence paired with truth, that lingers, that stays, that carves itself into memory in a way that no amount of arguing ever could. He'll remember the moment he tried to push you into a corner and you refused to react. He'll remember the way you chose to carry yourself instead of letting him drag you down. He'll remember the calm on your face, the strength in your stillness, the way you didn't break even when he thought you would. And that image will stay with him because it forces him to face the truth he spent so much time avoiding. You were stronger than he ever realized. The quiet truth has a way of turning the mirror back on people. Without your reaction to distract him, he has no choice but to look at himself. And what he sees is uncomfortable. He sees his manipulation, his insecurity, his need for control. He sees the weakness in his attempts to dominate someone whose silence revealed that the power was never his in the first place. That kind of realization doesn't fade. It doesn't disappear. It burns into memory because it exposes him in a way nothing else could. And here's what makes the quiet truth unforgettable. It doesn't shout. It doesn't fight. It doesn't compete. It simply stands. It stands like a mountain, unmovable, undeniable. He may try to walk away and pretend it didn't matter, but deep down, he knows. He knows he will never erase the memory of you refusing to be controlled. He knows he will never escape the image of you holding your peace while he lost his. He knows he will never undo the moment where silence revealed more than words ever could. The quiet truth is also unforgettable because it strips away illusion. People who thrive on control build their power on illusions. They create stories, they spread lies, they stir chaos. But silence cuts through that. Silence doesn't give them material to twist. Silence doesn't add to their performance. Silence leaves them standing alone with nothing but their own behavior on display. And that exposure is unforgettable. Once the mask is ripped off, they can never put it back on the same way again. He may move on with life. He may act like he's forgotten. He may even convince others that he won, that he had the last word. But late at night, when it's quiet, when there's no noise to cover it up, he will remember. He will replay the moment you didn't react. He will replay the strength in your stillness. He will replay the truth that no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't break you. And that memory will follow him, not because you shouted it into existence, but because you let the quiet truth stand on its own. The quiet truth doesn't just affect him, it frees you. It frees you from the need to prove, from the need to explain, from the need to fight battles that don't honor your spirit. It allows you to walk away with peace, knowing that your silence carried the message better than any argument ever could. And while he's stuck remembering, you're moving forward. You're building, growing, thriving. That contrast makes the truth even louder. He can't forget, because you're showing day by day that his control was never real. And don't underestimate the weight of dignity in this. The quiet truth isn't just silence, it's silence with dignity. It's not about being passive, it's about being intentional. It's about choosing not to waste your energy where it doesn't belong. It's about choosing your peace over their chaos. And that choice becomes unforgettable because it shifts the balance of power completely. Dignity makes the quiet truth undeniable. He'll never forget the quiet truth because it humbled him. It showed him something no argument could, that real strength doesn't shout, it doesn't scramble, it doesn't beg. Real strength simply stands. Real strength refuses to be shaken. Real strength doesn't fight for attention. It commands respect. And once someone witnesses that kind of strength, they can't unsee it. It stays in their mind even if they never admit it out loud. That's why the quiet truth is so powerful. It's not about the moment itself. It's about the echo that follows. It's about the way silence stretches into memory, the way dignity lingers long after words fade. Arguments are forgotten, comebacks lose their punch, but the quiet truth settles into the soul. And once it's there, it never leaves.